What's up guys, Tommy Bowyer here from Movie Rewind and welcome to part 2 of the Spider-Man villain film adaptations rankings. So without further ado, let's get into it. So as I said in part 1, this video will contain spoilers to every Spider-Man film because I'm talking about the villains that have appeared in those films. And also I'm doing numbers 6 to 1 today. If you want to see numbers 13 to 7, then I would recommend watching the first video first and then watching this one. Now that that's all cleared up, let's get on with the ranking. So at number 6, I have put the Lizard, portrayed by Rhys Ifans, in The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, I am a bit biased here because Lizard is one of my favourite Spider-Man villains, so of course I'm gonna love seeing him on screen. And I think they do a really good job with Lizard in The Amazing Spider-Man. He looks very menacing, and the action fight between the Lizard and Spider-Man in the film is really strong. Probably one of the best action scenes in any Spider-Man film. The main problem I have with the Lizard is that his motives are a bit strange because of course the main motives of the Lizard is that he wants to regrow his arm, which is of course classic Lizard. However, he then wants to turn everyone else into lizards by firing this special gas off the top of Oscorp Tower, which is a little bit far-fetched, don't get me wrong. However, you can kind of put that down to Kurt Connors becoming insane when he becomes the Lizard, and that's just what he wants to do, so you kind of deal with it. I think the Lizard's design is very strong in this film, and the action scenes with involving him and Spider-Man are really good, and he does pose a threat to Spider-Man in this film. He gets very beaten up when he first encounters the Lizard in the sewer. He gets very beaten up, which is something you don't see a lot in Spider-Man films. So I think Lizard does pose a very big threat to Spider-Man in this film, and I think Rhys Ifans does do a good performance in this film. At number 5 is Sandman, portrayed by Thomas Hayden Church in Spider-Man 3. Now, this is the villain that in Spider-Man 3 that gets the most development out of all three. And I think it's very clear why Sandman is ranked higher than other villains that appeared in Spider-Man 3. Because, of course, he has very understandable motives. He's trying to provide for his daughter who is dying. And that's very understandable. A lot of people can relate to that. So you understand why he is performing crimes, because he doesn't exactly want to hurt anyone, he just wants to provide for his daughter. And also when Sandman is born, when Flint Marko becomes the Sandman, it is a beautiful scene, one of the best scenes in any Spider-Man film when he's coming together as Sandman, so that's done really strongly. And the action scenes between Spider-Man and Sandman I think are really strong, especially the sewer scene because there's so much anger there. I think that's done great. The problem with Sandman in Spider-Man 3 is that when he's defeated in the sewer and he turns into mud, he doesn't actually appear until the finale. So I think that's pretty bad because he doesn't exactly get enough screen time as I think he deserves, because Thomas Hayden Church is really strong in the role and I think is a very faithful adaptation to the Sandman character. So I enjoy Sandman in this film. I think he's a great character and a great villain. I just wish that he had a bit more screen time and was focused on more. At number 4 is a bit of a strange one because it is Kingpin, the main villain in Into the Spider-Verse. Now, I know that a lot of Spider-Man villains appeared in Into the Spider-Verse. However, I've chosen to focus just on the main villain, which is Kingpin. And of course, Kingpin is a strange Spider-Man villain because in recent years, especially, he's become more associated with Daredevil than he has with Spider-Man. Although he is portrayed brilliantly here, you really understand the Kingpin's motives. He's trying to get his wife and son back. And that adds quite a lot of layers to the Kingpin because you can tell he's not just in this for money, which in some of the cartoons and comics they make out that's all Kingpin cares about. He's in this to try and get his family back. So when he's fighting Spider-Man, you feel that loss and the desperation Kingpin has, just trying to get his family back. And of course, the design of the Kingpin is really strong in this film. The fact that he can be in charge of all of these other Spider-Man villains, although he can handle himself in fights with multiple Spider-Men. So I think Kingpin's done really well in this film. A very faithful adaptation, as well as giving some development, making Kingpin seem more like a human instead of just a massive crime boss. So he's done really well in this film. Coming in third place is Vulture, portrayed by Michael Keaton in Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, Michael Keaton I've always wanted to see play a villain, so the fact that he was portraying the villain in Spider-Man Homecoming, I already know that he was going to be perfect. And as the Vulture, he is great because he has that sinister look to him, which just embodies the Vulture, and the design of the Vulture is really good in this film. It's a lot more mechanical than the classic Vulture look. However, I think it works in this film. It works within the MCU. And of course, the Vulture's motives I think are really great. The idea that he is just a blue-collar worker who's done out of doing work by Tony Stark, and then he wants to get revenge on Tony Stark and just wants to support his family. And of course, there's a brilliant plot twist in this film, which is the fact that he has a family. He is the father of Liz, who is Peter's date to the dance. And that really embodied that the Vulture was just kind of this working class man who's just trying to get by and do what he can to support his family. So there is a lot of relatability there and a lot of layers, which I really enjoy. And of course, some of the best scenes in this film are the Vulture threatening Spider-Man, not in the suit or anything, but just the plain Vulture, just a normal man portrayed by Michael Keaton, and it works really well in this film. Michael Keaton has such a sinister performance in this film, and it works really well. So I love the Vulture in this film. I think he's portrayed really well by Michael Keaton. He's involved in some great action scenes with Spider-Man, and of course the fact that they portray him as just kind of this normal working class guy who's just trying to support his family, I think that works really well and makes him more relatable. In second place, the runner-up is the Green Goblin, portrayed by Willem Dafoe in Spider-Man. Now, I think that this is an incredibly underrated performance, because in recent years a lot of people have said that Willem Dafoe is way too over the top as the Green Goblin, and it just doesn't work. However, I would completely disagree with that. I think he was cast perfectly for the role of the Green Goblin, and in this film he's probably one of the most threatening Spider-Man villains that has actually caused the most conflict with Spider-Man. The final action scene between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin is brutal. Spider-Man gets kicked, and kicked badly in that action scene. It's done really well, and Willem Dafoe is so menacing as the Green Goblin. I just think it works. The suit, yes, I've heard some people say that the suit is a bit over the top and it looks a bit too much like the Power Rangers. However, I think it totally fits the style of the film, and I think it fits what Willem Dafoe was doing for the character. And you get the idea that Willem Dafoe really wanted to portray this character. You know, he was putting his all into this role, and it really pays off. I don't think any other actor could portray the Green Goblin as well as Willem Dafoe does. He's a very menacing character in this film, and I think the Green Goblin is brilliantly portrayed in this film, and probably one of the biggest threats Spider-Man has faced in any Spider-Man film. And in first place is Doc Ock, portrayed by Alfred Molina in Spider-Man 2. Now, there is a reason that Spider-Man 2 is the best Spider-Man film, and having the best villain is one of the arguments for that. Dr. Octopus is portrayed brilliantly in this film because he's a very complex and layered character, and you feel a lot of emotion there because, of course, he loses his wife, so he doesn't feel like he has anything, and the only thing he has left is to finish this experiment, which he probably knows is going to destroy New York City. I think that Dr. Octopus is a great villain in this film. As I've already said, there is a lot of layers there. There's a lot of emotion. You understand his motives and why he is doing it. And of course, there are some great action scenes between Spider-Man and Doc Ock in this film, especially the train action scene. It's such a great action scene, probably one of the best action scenes I have ever seen on screen. It is done that well, and of course I like that at the end of this film Doc Ock actually understands what he has done is wrong, and he tries to kind of change his ways and sacrifices himself in order to save New York City. I think that was done really well. It's a great comeuppance for that character, and it's great to see that it shows that not all villains have to remain a villain throughout the film. Sometimes they can have their redemption moment and understand what they've done is wrong, and Doc Ock's sacrifice at the end of this film really does show that. So Doc Ock, I think, is a great villain. He's very faithful to the comics. There's a lot of emotion there, and Alfred Molina was just brilliant in the main role. I can't see any other actor portraying it as he did. He is one of a kind, and he does great in this role, and that's why Doc Ock and Alfred Molina's performance will always be ranked at the top of this list. So thanks for watching, guys. I really do hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it interesting and enjoyable, because I do enjoy doing Spider-Man themed videos. Spider-Man is my favourite comic book character, so of course I always love doing content about Spider-Man. However, I don't want to do too much, because too much of the same content can get a bit boring. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe in order to receive great and maybe even improved quality content in the future, and make sure to let me know how I could improve these videos in the future and how you think I could improve the experience for you and everyone else. And I will see you in another one. See ya!